Well, hello. Now that you've made a couple woodworking projects, let's try something a little more difficult. We're going to try a set of dovetails today. So here's the tools I'm going to use. I've got my back saw, and this one has pretty fine teeth, but even finer than a back saw is this one, which is a dovetail saw, traditionally speaking. And then we've been using the coping saw before, and a chisel, and a couple of layout tools over here. This is just a simple block of wood that I cut on some angles, 7 degrees, which are traditional angles for dovetails. So I'll be using that in my layout process, a square, and of course a pencil and tape measure. All right, so let's come on over here to the vise. And the first thing I'm going to do is get 2 blocks of wood, and I'm going to take one of my blocks of wood and lay that up so that it's flush. I could also use a marking gauge for this, but since my dovetails are going to be between these 2 blocks of wood, I'm going to take my line, my 3/4 inch line, and wrap that all the way around the block. Then I'm going to look for the center over here. Well, let me hold this in my vise. Alright, so that's a little easier to handle now. So this is a 3-inch block. So I'm going to mark the center at 1.5. And then what I want to do is I want to go 1/4 inch each side of center. Okay, so I'm going to set my tape measure here. If I can zoom you in a little bit. So there's my center. I'm going to come 1/4 inch to the left and 1/4 inch to the right. So this middle space is really a 1/2 inch wide. Furthermore, I'm going to mark 1/4 inch from each corner. And 1/4 inch from the right corner. Okay, so I don't need this center mark anymore. That was just to help me get everything lined up. Can you see my 4 1/4 inch marks? Excellent. Now I'm going to use my layout block here. And I'm going to take that on these 1/4 inch marks, and I want to go down so this gets wider. I don't want to go smaller than 1/4 inch. That's small enough. I want to get bigger. So larger from this side to this side. And then I'm going to mark the 3rd one because every other angle is going to switch. So now when I mark these 2, let's put you over here on this side. And I'll go back and get that other one. You see there? There's my layout. All right, so now I'm going to take my square and I'm going to extend these points straight down as I'm cutting those. And I'm going to do that with my square. So remember to pull it tight to the top here. And these are going to be my hand-cut dovetails. Oop, this one's hard to get. That's going to fall off over here. So I will flip that around this way. There we go. Okay. So what I want to keep is I want to keep this centerpiece, and I want to keep my two end half pins. So this is a piece of waste, and this is a piece of waste. I can mark that on the face as well. All right. So now I'm going to cut these out. And I'm going to use my back saw for that. Now remember, you're cutting straight down, so I don't want to tip my saw one way or the other. And I do want to leave the line. Okay, so there I've done my vertical cuts. Now how am I going to get these pieces of waste out of here? Well, if you recall, we had a similar situation back when we were doing a mortise, and here we go, the old coping saw. So remember, as I go down in the kerf, I want to turn as I saw slowly. There we go. We got it turned. There's one piece of waste. There it is. Let's cut the second one. There's the second one. All right, 2 pieces of waste. So these are my pins when it comes to dovetails. These are my pins here, cut out. Now I could have to do a little cleaning up with a chisel, but these look pretty good. So I think I'm ready for the second half. Remember, the pins are going to have angles on the end, but they should be straight down the face. This face too, straight down the face. Okay? So let's cut pins, and then we'll come back and do some tails. All right, so now we're ready to continue with the tails. We cut pins last time, and now we're cutting tails. So if you look at your board, the angles are getting smaller down here on the bottom than they are on the top. So I'm going to take this bottom face and I'm going to put an X there. So that way when I trace it, I want this X to be outside the box. Let me show you what I mean. Here's my second piece of material. Again, I'm going to start by laying out a line. I'll flush up that end and mark my 3/4 line all the way around. And then I'm going to take my pins and stand those up on my board. Here's my board. Remember the X I showed you a little while ago that I just made? I'm going to make that outside the box, so like this. Okay, I don't want to flip it and put it inside the box. See, if this were my drawer, if I were making a drawer or a case, this would be inside the box if this were a box over here. So I'm going to flip that over. There's my X. I want that outside the box. Okay, so I'm going to stand that up so I can see the X. And I'm going to trace my pins. Take your time, get it even. With a good sharp pencil, tracing my pins. Okay, so now as I tip this down, those 3 areas that I just marked, I want to put X's on so I don't mistake those and cut another set of pins. Okay, see how those match? That's what I want to cut out. That's what I want to remove. And your tails should always be wider on the end than on the inside, because otherwise, if you flip this around, the geometry is not going to hold it together. It's just simply going to fall apart. Okay, so the tails have to be wider on the end. That's why they call them dovetails, like a dove's tail. And now I need to make some square lines across my board here. I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to line this up. Here's those marks right there. And I'm going to take those straight across the end of my board. Right there. So you notice I didn't use that dovetail square at all that I made, that 7-degree wood block. I didn't use that this time. I took everything right off my pins. All right, so there we go. Again, not a bad idea to X out the pieces you want to remove. It's very easy to make a mistake and cut some more pins. You have one board with pins and a second board with more pins.
Warning.
We don't want that. We want pins and tails, okay? So now as you look at this, you notice none of these lines go straight down. They're all on an angle, that 7-degree angle. So to account for that, I've got a very easy solution. I'm simply going to take my board, whichever lines I want to cut. I've got 2 going to the right and 2 going to the left. I'm going to take my board and just tip it slightly. I guess I'll cut these first, and then I'll tip it back the other way and cut those. That way I don't have to turn my saw. So let's cut some tails. Now I'll tip it back the other way to cut the other 2. Ideally, I want to get these lines straight, vertical, because that's the easiest cut to make. Might even have to start your saw on an angle as you gently get started. Remember to leave a line. And then tip it. See what I did there? I started over here, and then I tipped it straight to follow the line. So there's my 4 cuts. Well, I'm going to need more than 4, aren't I? Because I haven't removed any waste yet. So, well, the easy ones to get rid of are going to be these on the outside, because I can simply turn my board and use my back saw a little more. Doesn't take a whole lot to remove that piece of waste. All right. Now I can flip it over and I'll do the same thing. Well, how are we going to remove that center piece of waste? Any ideas? You're right. We're going to use a coping saw. Here it is. Okay, so let's clamp this in the vise. This is going to be a very tricky cut because I don't just have square. I have to cut more than 90 degrees. So this one's really tricky. Be careful. Don't break too many blades. All right. Oh, it's not going to lift up, is it? No, that's because I laid out my dovetails correctly. Look at that. I can't even get the waste out. There it goes. All right. Well, let's see how they fit. So now my pins should come through my dovetails. If I laid these out correctly, are they going to fit? Oh, maybe I laid it out. Maybe I laid it out that way. There we go. Okay, so let me turn this around for you. Here's my pins and my dovetails. Are going to sit right on there. Oh, the X has to be outside the box, remember? They're going to sit right on there, just like that. There we go. Nice flush surface, flush on the end. Okay? Nice set of hand-cut dovetails. See you again.